Hello everyone, today our guest is the owner of Bucks Bar and Thundercat, Michael Bergson. How you doing, Mike?
I'm very good. How are you guys?
Good, thanks.
Good, yeah, good man.
So, the way we like to start our show is just understanding our guest a bit more. So we'd like to know how you grew up, what life was like for you.
Well, I grew up in Glasgow, born and bred. Always actually near this neck of the woods, south side. Grew up on the south side. I think I was born in the Gorbals or Govan Hill. I can't remember. My dad, I was asked my dad, he couldn't remember. But I lived just down the road at Shawlands for a while in my youngest days, and then we moved to kind of Giffnock and Mount Florida. At one point I lived in Albert Drive.
Right, okay.
So went to school at Burnside Primary in the south side of Glasgow. And then, my dad, poor soul, sent me to Hutchie. Skint himself sending me to Hutchie. Practically nothing to show for it. 2 seasons of D's and a higher. I wasn't an academic at all.
Yeah.
And then I left school, and that was me straight into the bar and restaurant trade.
Right. Just on that Hutchie there, I was actually the same. So I went in for a year,
Right.
and I realised, I grew up in business, so I realised this is not a school, this is a business here. They're running. What they're doing is they're getting, they're charging people the privilege to be around a certain class of kind of people. That's all it is.
All I can say. One of my best pals, and I'm not slating Hutchie, right? Because some people get on great there, but I wasn't an academic. And one of my friends actually left Hutchie. Well, he got asked to leave Hutchie when he was in about third year, and he went to St Ninian's, and St Ninian's was better for him because it wasn't pushing him down the academic route. It was more saying, well, what do you want to do with your life? You might not want to be an accountant or a lawyer or a doctor, and you might not be the kind of guy that gets 6 straight A's to do that. So, but at the end of the day, I've still got a lot of business contacts and a lot of lessons I learned. You learn lessons in life no matter where you are, don't you?
Definitely.
Absolutely. So, from there, then you went straight into the bar restaurant trade. So, what was that transition like, and what was the first?
My
job?
first job behind a bar was at my dad's local in the old ship bank in the Salt Market, and it was great apprenticeship. Getting to know your regulars and busy place. Looking after your customers, all the kind of things you need to know. Keeping your cellar tidy, keeping the bar clean, all that stuff. And then from there, after a few years of that, I got a job as a bar charge hand, working in DiMaggio's East Kilbride. And I stayed with them a good few years and worked my way up the ranks, so I was managing.
Yeah, so just for those who don't know, including myself, what is a charge hand?
A charge hand's just the person that's in charge of doing the orders for the bar, cleaning the pipes, the person that's in charge of the bar area.
Changing the kegs and stuff.
Changing the kegs, ordering the kegs, keeping the cellar tidy. That's your old. You're right. It's an old. I forget how young you guys are. All these old. I'm coming out with all these old school expressions.
Sounds like a navy position.
Yeah.
A military position. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in that kind of trade, you're about 16, 17, or was it?
Well, no, you have to be 18 to work
18,
in a bar.
right? Okay.
Yeah. So
even back then.
Yeah, even back then, and then I think I was 2 years. So I was about 20 when I started working for DiMaggio's.
Right. Okay.
2021.
And what kind of I've worked in the grocery trade and seen the aftermath of a night out. So you're in there right in the face of it. What's kind of the worst thing that happened
on a night out?
Yeah. Just where you're working there.
What was the worst thing?
Yeah.
Are you trying to say what was the worst event that happened to me?
Yeah.
Worst thing.
What's
the worst chaotic?
Yeah.
So you're talking about the drunkards, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah, a wee bit, yeah.
You're talking about all that kind of thing. Do you know what? Do you know the worst thing that can ever happen is when someone gets so drunk, right, and they're there themselves and you can't wake them up, and you're trying to get a pub locked up, and it's a Saturday night, and you can't get a blooming ambulance.
Yeah.
You can't get anyone to come and get them, and you're just stuck with this person.
What do you do in that situation?
You have to call the paramedics. And or whatever, and that's what they have to do. But of course, if the paramedics have got serious incidents, and the person's not actually going to die or isn't actually severely injured, so it's in your own interest to stop that from happening. So I think from DiMaggio's I went into the nightclub industry. I ran a place called Tiger.
Oh, right, okay.
And
So that's a chain, isn't it?
that was a big London chain.
All right.
Right.
And I had stints working with G1, where I did Art and Corinthian, which are big sort of multi-bar restaurant concepts in the city centre. Really smart places, but inevitably open till 3 in the morning. And that's the kind of places I ended up running. And it gets a bit chaotic there. Let's just say.
Because that's what my friend, he might be listening to this today, but he works for Nice and Sleazy's,
All right.
so he's quite nocturnal when he's doing his sort of bar work there. So he's obviously starting getting prepped about 9ish or so, and then he's through till about 4 in the morning. He's we all turned up at my pal's leaving do, and he told us not to come up, and we turned up, and there was a few casualties, myself kind of included there, but. It seems like, I mean, you'll probably have the people that are actually really decent and stuff, like they come into pubs and nightclubs and stuff, but for the most part I think it's like Saturday, Friday night in Glasgow, it's just like you need to just be prep yourself. Were you a wee bit nervous when you started working at those sort of venues in like the first few sort of times that you done it?
Oh, very much so, you know, because you have all sorts of things going on. You have some dangerous people wanting to come in that you don't want to come in, and you have to tell them they're not allowed to come in, and you worry about all these kind of things. But you just got to you've just got to take a professional approach to it. Yeah, as long as your manner is professional, you know, you'll be okay. You know what I mean? And you know, we always cooperated with the police and things like that.
It's almost like one of those things, like if someone comes to you with aggression, do not meet them with aggression as well.
You've got
you
to
need
calm
to
them
just
down. We actually did a brilliant course on that, and it was all about how you calm someone down. You know, your tone of voice, your body language. And you know, I don't want to tempt fate, but I worked all those years on doors, not as the bouncer, but I would be in charge of the bouncer, so I had to be there. And you know, talking the situation down, your body language, etc. Managed to do that many times, and thankfully I never get hit. Don't want to tempt fate.
So that's interesting. Actually, I think a lot of industries could use that. You know, even guys that work in takeaways or in you know any kind of business. So what does that involve then? So say someone comes at you and they're shouting and bawling. What's your approach?
Well, the first thing is you've got to understand the relationship between alcohol and adrenaline. And adrenaline can get driven by they basically increase at the same time. So someone gets more angry, their adrenaline goes up, and if they've got more alcohol in their system, you just got to imagine it as this chart that's going through the roof, and you've got to bring that down. Now the thing that I was told was self-righteousness plays into that. So you know, if someone comes into the takeaway and they're starving and they're getting told they're not going to get served, for instance, and that they're going to get really angry, I deserve to be served, I've done nothing wrong. That's where the self-righteousness comes into it. So the way the guy taught me it was, if you this is in a bar situation, don't know how you apply it to other things, but if you the quicker you notice someone is in your venue and is getting that way, your first contact's got to be gentle, and then you just keep the contact and it's like, listen mate, just have a glass of water, have a wee sit down. Nothing against you. What's your name? My name's Michael. You become their friend. So that the side of that, where if you don't do that, all of a sudden, you just you know, they're out of hand, and your first word is, you need to calm down.
Yeah.
Why do I need to calm down? I've been in here spending a fortune. I pay your wages. Self-righteousness kicks in. So it's all about that. You know, you've got to keep a lid on them, and it's the exact same at the door. If you notice that they're getting that way, those are the ones you don't let in, and you've got to knock them back calmly.
Yeah. You know,
I'm
you
really
can't just
sorry.
say no tonight, pal.
Not tonight. Beat it. It's not the way you do it. Sorry, I can't let you in. I'm sorry.
To be fair though, like you obviously like sort of mentioned that situation, I can sort of kind of relate to a situation similar to that. So one of my friends, after the Scottish Cup final this year, went into the bank, and you could, when I seen him, I was like, he's had far too much to drink, and he was just vaping in the bar, and he was vaping like right in front of the bar as well, and they were like, right, last time, if you do it again, you're gonna get kicked out. It went up, tried to order a pint, done it again. The guy was like, right, like final one, and then like the girl that's the bar manager, exactly as you said, like just said to him, look here, like you've had a wee bit too much to drink. Here's the food that you've ordered. If you eat that, have a glass of water, I'll refund you for that pint. Even though like a third of the pint was drank out of, they were like that. Do you know what? It's £3.50. We'll refund you. If you have that glass of water, have your food, pet yourself up a wee bit, we can probably serve you again and just take a wee bit of time to chill.
That is a brilliant example of how you're supposed to do it. That's brilliant, actually. Really, really good. And the other side of that is if you didn't do that, it's just like you're not having that, you're not getting your food, get out. What's that going to do?
Aggression.
Aggression.
Exactly. So obviously you mentioned sort of Tiger. Did you go from that to opening Bucks Bar? What was the transition there?
No, I was at Tiger, and this is a thing about being part of huge big corporations like that. And I looked up to my bosses, and my future to me was going to work my way up onto the board, maybe via area manager and then become a director, etc. Or got another company, and this is a company that values you. And the company got sold to, it was a private equity buyout, and all my bosses I looked up to just got sacked straight away. And it made me think, is this the kind of life I want for myself? So I was thinking about doing my own thing. But then a guy called James Mortimer that owned, you guys will know it now as Kong, above the social and everything, in the city centre in Royal Exchange Square. He was opening up a complex of bars and restaurants. You had one up, and above it you had a members club called 29. There was and stuff like that. And he asked me to come and work for him. And I thought, I could learn a lot off of this guy, because he'd worked his way up from just owning a pub to where he was now. And I went to work for him, and I did that for 3 years before I started out myself. But my intention, I always had it in my head, I wanted to work for myself from that moment. And I got Soho on Miller Street was my first bar in 2008. That's the one that's now Thundercat. And we opened up Bucks in 2016.
Good stuff. So obviously you opened the bar, Thundercat first, then you opened Bucks Bar. What sort of obstacles did you kind of overcome, or what sort of problems did you sort of face while opening them?
The hardest thing, you need to get money to open somewhere. Now we opened in 2008, which was when the credit crunch hit, if you remember. Now the way we did it, we got a brewer's loan. So we took on a place, our first place was Soho on Miller Street, which at the time was a place called Fix. And the way it works, the brewers, in this case it was the Brewers Scotch in Newcastle, they'll say, we'll lend you the money to do what you want to do. And I needed something like £60,000. But you've got to pay that back at the same rate as the bank, and you've got to buy the beer off of us, and they can charge what they want for it. So it kind of hurts your profits a wee bit. It makes it tougher to make a profit. So I did that, and I actually, with everything I did, including the shop fit and everything, and then how tough business was, I was about £120,000 in debt at one point. And the venue itself was only taking about 12, 13 in a good week. Very good week, 15 grand a week. But average sort of 13 grand a week.
Right.
And you've got 120 grand debt.
And what's the margin on that 13?
Well, you would see, to be honest, very, very little, because your margin, your gross profit margin will be about 60%, but that's before you take off your rent and everything. So I was lucky if I was walking away with £500 a week at that point. I've got a young family and everything at the time, so I was taking away a lot less money than what I was earning before. And that's a really tough time. I mean, even at that, you're in all this debt, and instead of being able to pay it back, there was things like some days we didn't have enough money to pay the staff. We paid the staff weekly on a Friday. We didn't have enough money to do it, so I would have to take the Friday's lunch takings, hope that we had a good lunch, so I could take the money and put it in the bank, so I could then transfer the money to the staff. And then you've got to build it up, because you get direct debits coming off on the Monday, and then something breaks, a fridge or something, you can't get it fixed. That was undoubtedly, that's the toughest point. But thankfully it got busier.
Yeah, and so how long did that period last? Like the kind of the struggling phase?
It lasted a long time. I actually had to go back to work.
Right.
So I got an offer. The Corinthian was getting relaunched as a casino, and I'd worked there before, and I got an offer to go and help launch it. With the understanding that, do you know what? We know you've got your own business. You can still have time for that, but you need to work for us pretty much full time. So that was a casino that was open till 6 a.m, bars, restaurants, clubs, the whole rest of it. So I would, you were talking earlier about long shifts. Some days I would be in my restaurant at lunchtime and I wasn't getting out of the Corinthian till 4 a.m. So they were long shifts and 6 days a week. And
what's going through your mind at this point then? How are you getting through this?
Well, I could see the debt coming down. All right, so that was good, because what happened was I was earning a good wage, very good wage that I was really pleased with, and I was able to, obviously you have your own personal stuff you've got to pay off, managed to get on top of that, and then the money I would have been taking out my own business just went, and instead of going in my pocket I could just pay off the debt. So I did that for about 3 years.
Right.
And that was a long time, and then I came out of that, and by the time I came out of it, we'd actually got rid of the debt and we managed to self-fund our second venue in Jordan Hill.
Brilliant.
So without borrowing anything.
Is that a Thundercat in Jordan Hill?
That's a Little Soho in Jordan Hill, which is now owned by my sister-in-law. So she was the manager, and then just when the pandemic started, we did a wee deal where she then took that on, and we just focused on Bucks. At that point, we had Bucks opened up.
Oh, right, okay, right. So
and,
so Bucks Bar then, where did that idea come from?
Well, I got stuck in America, and it was a big snowstorm, and me and my wife got stuck in New York. We thought, right, let's just don't want to spend a fortune, but let's go and find out where all the locals eat. And we found a place in Brooklyn called Peach's Hot House that did the most amazing, spicy Nashville hot style fried chicken. And I went, oh my God, I need to get this back to Glasgow. I need to work out how this is done. But I always liked New York. I liked this. It was kind of what they call dive bars, where you go in and they feel a wee bit, you get the neon lights and the kind of darkness and the shots of bourbon and all that. You see them in the movies.
Yeah.
And if you've seen the new Top Gun movie, that bar that they're always in, it reminds me of a kind of dive bar.
Don't ruin too much of that. I'm seeing it tomorrow.
Oh mate, you're going, what a film. Anyway, you'll love it.
Yeah.
So that kind of feel, and then we went to Nashville. Where Nashville hot chicken, we actually went to the place where Nashville hot chicken was invented, and I tried it there, and that was the best one. And I got talking to one of the chefs and gave him a bit of money and said, come and meet me in town tomorrow for a coffee, and he told me how they made it, and we brought it back to Glasgow.
Fantastic.
So
were you planning to go to Nashville, or was it just because of that
just
chicken? Just
because of that, we went there to find that out, and we made a point of going there. And then I got further inspiration from what they call the honky tonk bars, which are the ones with the live music, and Bucks was born, the vibe and the food, and it all just came together.
It's fantastic that you say that. Obviously with the Thundercat, one of my pals, he is like he's got like tattoos. He was like kind of inspired by like the Beatles and stuff growing up. So he's got like John Lennon quotes and stuff like that, like Johnny Depp. It's like I can see Bucks, but I can see mainly Thundercat as like his kind of vibe of place.
Yeah.
But I've been in it. I've only ever been in it once, and it was during like lockdown and stuff. And we were struggling. This was literally just us, and my pal had a place booked for 2 hours in the town, and the rest of the night was spent walking about, trying to see, because it was the time that you could only book places. So you only had this place for about 2 hours. And the rest of the night we walked around trying to find a place to go to, and we eventually, someone said, oh, there's a place called Thundercat down there, and as you say, it's the one in Miller Street, the one in the town, and we were like, we'll just go in here, and it was brilliant. And they do you do Budvar on draft, don't you?
Yes.
Brilliant pint. And the boys that I went with, we all were, we'll all get a pint of Budvar, and it took us back to the time we were in Budapest, and that's the kind of local beer there, because it's a Pilsner. It's
That's right. Yeah,
that's what they do over in Czech Republic. No,
Yeah,
but it's a nice bar. That's the only time I've been in. But I just remember that night so well, and I was like, oh, it's a nice venue.
Budapest is in Hungary, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so like in Bucks Bar as well, I like you've got all the portraits of people like on the wall.
Yeah.
How much input do you have in that? Is that all your kind of that's everything?
You
All
know,
your
we are very, very. The whole vibe of it is I mean, it's rock and roll, but I was very conscious. I didn't want a place where you'd come in and you might have a member of family and think this is too loud. I can't hear anything or whatever. So it's good time rock and roll. So that spirit of like Little Richard and all that kind of stuff. The early Chuck Berry. And that spirit of that kind of music carries on through some modern acts.
A bit like a Bruce Springsteen kind of.
Bruce Springsteen's great, there's a couple of him, but you know, there's nothing angsty, nothing. You know, it's all about good times, good fun. You know, not going too heavy, and you know, the pictures on the wall kind of emulate that.
Yeah, because it is an experience. It's not just the food. You know, when you go in there, it does feel like you're experiencing something.
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
a vibe. I wanted to make people one of the best compliments I ever get is we didn't feel like we were in Glasgow. We forgot where we were there.
That's exactly what I felt like. Honestly,
yeah. And I think all great kind of restaurant bar experiences kind of do that. And by the way, some do it. They make you feel like they give you the pure Glasgow experience. Great traditional pubs, great traditional places that you can't get anywhere else. But yeah. That's what
and see the chicken itself. How is it so big?
Well, you get a chicken breast, right? And you know this. If you, I'm thinking you're talking about the big burgers.
Yeah, the burgers. Yeah.
So what we do is we butterfly it, which means you cut it open, and then we tenderize it. So you kind of flatten it out. Then it gets marinated in buttermilk. And the buttermilk is not actually a fatty product. When you make butter, you take the fat out of the milk, and the buttermilk's what's left. So it's actually acidic.
Okay.
And it tenderizes it, and we season the buttermilk so that as it penetrates the chicken, it takes the flavours into the chicken. So it tenderizes it, makes it more juicy, and also when that happens, it'll expand a little bit. Because when you marinate anything with liquid, it goes in. And then of course you've got the coating, and that gets fried. So that's why it looks so huge.
Oh, right. And so the menu, did you design all of that, or did you have people helping you with
that?
Yeah.
I designed the initial menu, and over the years people have added their wee bits and bobs. I've got my exec chef Yvonne now who helps out and thinks of new dishes and puts on specials and things like that.
The cat soup, the salt and chili burger. That's my one.
Yeah, that's
my favourite.
That's the one that everyone. That's our most popular one.
Yeah. And so you know, going from there's three now, isn't there? 3 Bucks bars.
There's 3
in Glasgow. So what is what is your plans with Bucks Bar, and then for yourself?
We were about to do another one in the West End. We got into very late stages of negotiating that, and then the landlord had a change of heart right as we were about signing the dotted line. So that's a shame. We would have had that open by now. So we've started looking at other cities. So we're looking at trying to take it all over. Maybe a few more cities.
So like Edinburgh and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking over there at the moment. So you never know, but I'll make an announcement. I'll make sure you guys get exclusive.
Yeah. And how much, business owners, the main thing is kind of trying to systemize it when you've got multiple things going. So how do you manage your time and kind of make sure you're spending enough time there, but also not spending too much time tied up?
You have to have a team around you that you trust. And I'm very fortunate that my 3 most senior key team members, Simone started with us in Little Soho, Jordan Hill in 2011, so she's been 11 years, that's my area manager. My head of ops, Ashley, was around about the same time as a restaurant manager, and Yvonne I worked with when I worked at 29, so I've known Yvonne, coming on, must be about 15, 16 years, and we'd worked together before, so I trust these people implicitly. So you need that first and foremost, and you need to place your trust in them. And the other side of it, do you know what's actually been really good? Technology means you can spend. Sometimes I get out of the office and I've got a couple more emails to send or whatever, and a couple of things to do. I'll do it from home. This morning I woke up, I had my breakfast with the family, and then I did a wee bit of work, and then, you know, spent a bit, my son was cutting about the house, so spent a bit of time with him. Then you go into work. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because I mean the hospitality industry in general, it's a very antisocial kind of, I mean, you're working in a social environment, but for your family, you're, you know, so how have you found that benefit?
Yeah, I mean, you know what I will say, you know, I worked some insane hours when I was younger, and I had to do it. You know, we are trying for our members of staff now, our team, our managers, we try to make it that a weekend off is not a rarity. You know, if my GM's done all the preparation, all the other work, I don't mind if they're not there on a Saturday night. Do you know what I mean? If they've got someone that's well trained looking after the restaurant for them, that's great, but they've got to make sure it's right. 4-day weeks for chefs and things like that are what we offer now. So things like that, we're doing it. But I think as a business owner, personally, if you're going to do it, you've got to do those late hours. But I'm getting a bit old for that now, you know.
I know, because I mean, like, for instance, you had that time obviously to spend with your son this morning, but had it been a few years ago when you were working at the Corinthian and running Soho and making it happen, like, that would just be fiction, you know. So I suppose now you've kind of like said, right, I've put the graft in and I'm actually like, you know, it's good. It came out trumps.
I mean, I find you've got to keep your attention in your business 7 days a week when you own it. You know, there'll be something I do. I'll speak to someone I email every day of my life. But, you know, at the same time, I'll make time for other things as well.
Definitely. So you also had the Glasgow Rocks opened one, and you had a massive order in for Billie Eilish during the week. Who's a vegan as well.
She's a vegan. It was actually a road crew. Right. It was a road crew. So we got this order in from Billie Eilish. Well, it was actually her road crew were in having drinks, a few of them, and then they went away, and we got a call. Can you send this over to the Hydro? And we sent it to the coaches because she's strictly against meat. So I've since found out that they had to, the people eating meat had to do it in the tour buses. They weren't allowed to do it in front of her.
Oh, really?
She's really strictly vegan. And by the way, this isn't a hit job on her because my son works at Hydro, my eldest son, and he said she was brilliant. She was really lovely, did an amazing show. She was talking to all the staff. Really nice girl, but she's just got those principles. Do you know what I mean?
How do you even prep an order like that big on top of the other stuff?
Do you know what? That is one of the things I'm most proud of my team for is moments like that, because you get the order in and you have to speak to the prep chefs and say, look, you're going to have to do more for tomorrow. They're like, that's fine, and they worked around it. Someone came in on their day off, manager stayed late, another chef came in to help get the order ready, and it was all everyone pulling together. Phoned the suppliers, said, listen, can you change your order? No problem. So everyone pulling together to make that happen.
Taking ownership as well and saying
taking ownership, that was, you know, to me, and I never had to ask anyone to do anything. That happened. That was my head of ops, Ashley, my manager of West Regent Street, Helen, my exec chef Yvonne, another manager there, Susie. She went in and helped the guys prep it in the kitchen, and you know, just things like that. Really, really brilliant.
Yeah, you know? And so you've, you know, the staff, of course, really pulling together for you there. So, other than the staff you've had for, you know, for years, when you're looking at new staff, what's your kind of approach to recruitment?
Perpetual recruitment is what you have to do at the moment. Now, that before, I mean, I remember when I started working in bars, it was quite hard to get a job in a bar, you know, or a restaurant. It was like, oh mate, you've got a job at that bar, can you put in a word for me? Now, of course, we've got a shortage. And I think a lot of it's to do with people don't want to do that work. So we have to, you know, we can't change the entire culture of the city. So we have to appreciate what that culture is looking for. And that's why we are looking at things like 4-day weeks and things like that. So we had to change that. But we just interview constantly. Every week we're interviewing people. We also have an approach now in kitchens where we're getting young people in with no experience and training them up fully. So, you know, we have an office with a training room and stuff like that we utilise, and we're training them up to get involved in the industry and putting them through their courses at college, and we're taking that on ourselves. So that's something that we do as well, and I think that's something everyone's got to look at, is the workforce is younger now. There's a lot of young people out there looking for jobs. And sometimes if you've got a great attitude, you're better with that you're better with a great attitude as a base than someone with loads of experience who might have a bad attitude.
Yeah, why do you think it is that people don't like to hire younger people?
Again, it's because I think a lot of people look at it as, they'll look at a CV and they'll say, so, you know, let's say you own an Italian restaurant, and you look at the CV and you go, oh look, he's worked in that pizza place, that place there, that place there. Oh, he's got relevant experience. I can just chuck him in the kitchen and he's ready. He or she.
Yep.
And that's what they look at, but it doesn't always serve you that well. You know, I think if you've got systems and processes in place where you can train people up, and to be honest, a lot of that's kind of simplifying the job that they've got to do initially, and then working them up to something a bit more complex.
Yeah, so we're both engineers. Blair specifically is a process engineer, so it'd be interesting to hear more about the actual process. How did you map that out, like the cooking process? Did you do that yourself?
Well, yeah. Now, when we took on West Regent Street, the first Bucks, now back in the day, restaurants had huge kitchens. We used to have these big brigades. And mine that's a restaurant that's been there for decades. So I had this big kitchen out the back, which is almost the same size as the space out the front. In fact, I think it's slightly larger. That's unheard of. Now, if you go into a modern restaurant, you'll have a smaller kitchen as possible. So when we opened the second Bucks, we said, well, we can use part of that as a production kitchen. And we can get a refrigerated van. And then when we opened the second one in Trongate, we prep it all up. So the chefs make all the marinades, the sauces, prepare the chicken in the way that I explained to you, and they do all that. And then the Trongate kitchen effectively put in their orders to the West Regent kitchen, and they delivered there. But we got busier and busier and busier. So now we have a production kitchen and 2 refrigerated vans. So it means the guys in the kitchen, their job's a lot more simple. You know, if they get wiped out like Billie Eilish wants $1,000 worth of takeaway, they don't have to say, oh God, I've got to stay behind now, I've just stayed behind to get his takeaway out, now I've got to stay behind in prep, and we've got to come in the morning. They just call up the prep guys and go, this is what I need for tomorrow. The prep guys have it taken care of and gets delivered in a refrigerated van the next day.
Aye, and then it's just a case of you just cooking it and then putting it in the burger.
Yeah, it's a cooking, finishing kitchen. So
and just prepping it and wrapping it up and
and the advantage I have in the production kitchen, all my guys there are seasoned chefs. They only have to work from 8 o'clock in the morning to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So they don't have to. So you know, they're very precise. They're doing it without distraction. They're not in a restaurant where all of a sudden someone's coming back and going, I know you're trying to prepare those burgers, but I need some help up the front, and a waiter or a waitress coming in and moaning at them or shouting at them. They're doing it without distraction, so their output is much higher than if they were in a restaurant.
It's a much better way to tackle it, because I think with chefs, I've only really worked in like a takeaway like a year and a half of my life, but like when it does get busy, it's stressful in a kitchen. It is very high pressure, and do you know what's actually quite mad? It's like, because it's a warm environment, it seems as if it elevates that mood much more. That it's very like stressful. You could tell the pressure's just like. Yeah,
I mean, it's one of the reasons as part of our management training. I say the managers have to work in the kitchen. And on the pass, I remember being a young waiter or bar charger, whatever I was at the Maggios, working a 10-hour shift, being absolutely starving, and walking up to the pass mid-service and saying to the chef, going to just give me a bowl of soup from over there and a bit of bread. And I'm going, get away from here when I'm working. Me thinking, that is completely unreasonable. And then actually, when I got to work on the pass, I was, you're in that zone and you're really trying to keep track of everything. You can't be distracted for 1 second. Someone's asking you for a bowl of soup. And it was only then that it made me realise. So when we have crazy busy shifts at Christmas time and stuff like that, that's why we get in boxes of food for the staff. because we feed all our staff from the kitchen.
Yep.
But the chefs feed them, but at busy times, we'll feed them, you know.
It's kind of like being, I've heard that before, like if you're a footballer, it's good to play, like if you're a striker, it's good to play in midfield and on the wing, so like you can understand what perspective everyone else is coming from a wee bit.
It. So, and you know, now and again we get chefs to work out front as well.
Fantastic. Obviously, sort of moving on to COVID and the pandemic. So, you know, it was a tough time, COVID, for a lot of families, especially those who kind of lost loved ones. It wasn't really nice, and even the periods of isolation and stuff. But I think even for the hospitality industry, you could probably agree that the difference in restrictions was a bit unfair, especially in Scotland. I mean, we had, I think there was a video you were down at the Parkhead or the Merchant City, and you were sort of disputing the fact that a pub is allowed restricted capacity inside it, but Parkhead is allowed 60,000 people in a Europa playoff game. I think it's somewhat right, you know. Like, I don't know how they can justify that, but yet hospitality suffers.
Look, I wouldn't come around and say, listen, I don't care. You know, sometimes when you're talking about this, like you say, and I've got two friends who were really ill from COVID. Like, one of them nearly died, and another, he spent a lot of time in hospital because of it. So I know it's not, you know, I'm not trying to say, well, they can suffer. Life needs to go on. But what I felt was that a lot of the rhetoric coming out was that some other things can go ahead, but you know what? Restaurants are a death trap. Bars are a death trap. And I think, you know, after 2020, I think the best indicator of that was that all I'm going to say on this matter is, you know, eat out to help out. Remember we did that?
Yeah. Did you do that?
Yeah, bargain.
Yeah. So that gave restaurants and bars a massive boost. We served, across the whole of Scotland, we served 60 million meals during Eat Out to Help Out. So that's an average like 10 meals per person. People were going daft for it. And, you know, that's a lot. You know, have we got lots of restaurant staff dying? And this is before anyone was vaccinated. No, we didn't, because when you go into a restaurant or a bar, and bars were working in the same, you know, we were operating the same way as restaurants, where you had to sit at a table, there was a gap between the table, and then there was the next table, and you were getting served by one person. All of us were doing the same. Under that model, we were safe. That's what they did in Sweden. They kept it going throughout the whole pandemic, didn't shut anything down. And I think they should have just stuck with something like that, stuck to their guns, and they should have given the support to the places like concert halls, nightclubs, things like that. They should have got all that support money, and we should have just got a big break in taxes. So they should have said, look, you can operate like that, we're going to cut your VAT dramatically to compensate for what you've lost, and we can just crack on. And we spent billions on shutting down bars and restaurants unnecessarily and for too long, in my opinion. And you know, the argument that you know you're saving the NHS or whatever, taxes fund the NHS. You know, those billions, you're gonna have to cut costs everywhere. You know, a year ago there were 648 people in Scotland waiting more than 2 years for treatment in the NHS. There's now 10,613 waiting more than 2 years for treatment.
And that's not even COVID. That's illness.
Everything waiting on treatment. That will lead to loss of life. And you know, the NHS is going to need all the help it can right now. And here we are. We call it cost of living crisis. I call that a cost of lockdown crisis, because I think it just went too hard and too long, and became too much about politicians and press scaring politicians into being safer than each other, and it became about the politics.
Yeah, that's what I think. I don't think it was the way a lot of people say that the government are trying to poison us with. I don't really believe that, but I think what's happened is the government have been stuck in this hole, and everything's shut down. they want to make people feel safe. They want to reassure them. Here comes this vaccine, right? Let's go and buy it. Let's go and get it. We're gonna. So I think that's just what's happened. But it's a lot of strong opinions on this.
I think I know, because I think, but in saying that though, I think the press did really just take it to the power of 10 in terms of they did really kind of like, I mean, there was other things going on in the world, didn't it? It was sometimes, I remember during lockdown, it was like every day it was on the news. You were like, I'm gonna stop watching the news. Like,
the fear-mongering has consequences, and you'll have people that were scared to go to the doctors, not getting themselves checked, cancellations of treatment. You know, and in terms of overwhelming the NHS, do you know that we paid in Britain, for a number of private hospitals to provide beds and only used 5% of them. There were 40,000 people with nursing qualifications who offered assistance to the government. We only employed 5,000 of them. We built hospitals like what we did at Hydro, the Louisa Jordan, and we didn't use it. So, you know, and people, all that kind of stuff, I think there should have been a lot more, going back to what we are talking about, there should have been a lot more going on with things like that, as opposed to saying, let's shut business.
So, you know, of course, there's always negatives and positives. Was there any positives you seen, you know, coming out of the pandemic? You know, things that made you adapt.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, with takeaway was the big thing with us. Takeaway was not a part of our plan really. We just wanted to create a restaurant, a sit-in place with a wee bit of takeaway on the side. That's always how our business has been. And the reason for that was that once we got busy, and it took us a while to get busy, but once we got busy, Friday night, Saturday night, I had a lot of people in the restaurant to take care of. I didn't want to, you know, and my kitchen was optimised out, so I didn't want you to say to you, hey, come and get a takeaway at Bucks, and you phoning up 15 Fridays in a row and not being able to get anything at the times you actually want them. So we decided we didn't want to do that. So lockdown happened. I think we shut down completely for about 6 weeks, and then we went, like, let's do takeaway, and it just went mad. I mean, it went mad. The first day, 700 people turned up, and I thought I was going to get to jail, because this was like when Rule of Six was going on. I'm looking outside, there's this massive crowd, I'm like, oh my god, I'm going to be on GMTV, Piers Morgan shouting at me, calling me a COVID idiot, I'm going to be in the front of the Sun, Public Enemy #1, look at this guy, super spreading maniac, and all that kind of stuff. And you know, so we got systems and processes in place like that, pre-order and come and collect at certain times. But that really took off. So for instance, when we opened our latest Bucks in Southside, Mount Florida, not far from here, we said, let's set this up so that we can do takeaway and delivery. That is a huge part of our business there, and it will be for all other Bucks that we do.
Yeah. And obviously, sort of going back to the COVID thing, I mind the one video you posted was the EasyJet flight. I was in a flight not too long ago, and they said the mask on, man, they were adamant we had to wear a mask, but they gave one out to us, which was quite good, rather than you having to run all the way back to find one.
Listen, I'd been on a number of planes and I wore a mask, but on this occasion I knew you had to wear a mask, and my wife had left one, and I left my wife a mask in the toilet. I said, sorry, they'll give you out one. And the girl just went, no, you're not getting on the flight. We're standing at the gate, and then the flight I went running for a mask, came running back, and the flight took off. So it's things like that where I felt like, you know, there was a level of, I wasn't really moaning about EasyJet as such, because they were, you know, having to adhere to these policies, same as anyone else. But it was like, it's like a kind of psychosis that made us turn against each other in certain ways. To me, customer service means we need you to wear this mask. There's one there. Really sorry, but this is that's what we did in our restaurants. Anyone came in, say, listen, we've got to ask you to wear a mask. It's part of our law now. There's a mask. Do you mind wearing one? I'm medically exempt. No problem at all, sir. Didn't ask any questions. And on they went, and that was it. So there was a customer service side of it that I think that you couldn't afford to forget.
Yeah, we had remember when being in the shops up at Fernhill, seeing a lot of people come, you know, not a lot, but a few people coming in and saying, coming out and saying, oh, the COVID doesn't exist and this and that, whatever, and causing and it's causing problems because other customers are in there and they're getting scared and they're complaining to us. And then, like you say, with the mask as well, some people coming in refusing to wear a mask, and we couldn't really police that. We couldn't really stop people, coming in, because how can you stop?
And because in the same sentence it also doesn't, okay, fair enough if like this guy comes in and doesn't give a toss about it, but obviously the person that does is not going to have a good customer experience. Exactly. And obviously your shopper, the way we combated that was we asked everyone at the door and then didn't ask them again. So that's what I said. I said, put up plenty of notices, have all your hand sanitising stations. We had like 12 set up. I mean, at one point, I know what you're talking about. People were so scared at the beginning. I remember in one of our restaurants we had 12 hand sanitising stations, and someone wrote a review and said no one showed me where the hand sanitising station was when I walked in. They don't care. And then they were saying things like, oh, the temperature, people were talking too loud. That will cause coronavirus to harvest in the air. It doesn't really work that way, but people actually became scared of air. What
was the gloves all about? Why were we wearing gloves for the
fun? I can't work. I mean, our chefs wear gloves in the kitchen to stop things sticking to their hands, but they wash them.
Now they've went like triple the price, so because everyone's buying them.
Yeah. And I've spent thousands of pounds on masks, and it just got a little bit too. People had it all. I remember we have an over door heater in a restaurant, to keep out the drafts. And I can remember this woman walked in and she had a booking, and I went, hi, booking. She said, booking for such and such. She went, oh my God, this place is boiling, because the heater was blowing on her head. Then she ran out of the restaurant because she was terrified. In her mind, heat means that it just morphs in the air. And comes across like this big cloud of death
and bakes
it. The restaurant, which of course it's not. It's got to be in close contact.
Right. So it's been a pleasure talking to you, Michael. Now, what we're going to do now is 10 quick fire questions. I'm going to do the first 5. Are you ready?
Go.
Okay. What's the favourite book you've read?
A State of Fear, but no, it's not. That's COVID stuff. Take that out. Edit that out. Trainspotting. I loved that book.
The films as well.
I love the book more.
Favourite movie?
Star Wars.
What would your last meal ever be? Like, if, those death row stories.
Oh, right. It changes quite a lot. If you're asking me right now, I'd start off with really good char-grilled lamb chops from the village. You know the village down at Tradeston? That's my favourite starter.
Yeah, it's my neighbours.
Oh, their lamb chops. That would be my starter. My main course would be a brilliant fish and chips. And then I would probably have a 7-courser to stop me from dying quickly. But
fish and chips, curry sauce, mushy peas,
and then really
everything.
good, and then really good ice cream.
Oh, fantastic!
Perfect. What's the one thing you couldn't live without?
Food.
Makes sense. And then what's your favourite thing to unwind, relax?
Cooking, actually.
All right.
That's strange, isn't it? But yeah, absolutely. Cooking along to music.
Yeah. Before we go on to the next 5, you mentioned ice cream there, and you're a Givenlock boy, or have stayed in Givenlock. Have you ever been to Valentini's?
Of course.
What's your favourite 2-scoop combo?
Don't insult the man.
Do you know something? It's always the same, and it's really boring. It's vanilla and chocolate. That's it. That is it.
Right, okay, we'll just cut it off.
Right, round the second 5. If you had any superpower, what would it be?
Oh, I'd be able to fly, definitely. I just go Superman's powers, if that counts all of his. But no, flying. Flying like that.
What's the best piece of advice you ever got?
In business, hire people better than you.
What would you say to your teenage self?
Shut up.
What's the best place you've ever visited?
Best place, city, or just anything?
Just city, anything, town.
I love New York. I just love it.
Do you?
Aye.
Did you just stay in Manhattan when you went, or did you go Queens, Harlem?
I'll tell you what, Lower East Side. Go to Lower East Side. If you go to New York, anyone's listening to this, go to Lower East Side, New York. brilliant.
Is that in Manhattan or is that kind of?
No, it's Lower East Side. It's
Right.
yeah.
It's one of the boroughs, is it?
Yeah, it's one of
Right.
the boroughs. Fantastic place.
Good.
You'd love it.
Aye. Have you ever been to like the deep pan pizzas they do? There's a place there's a place in Cathcart that do them. It's called Cannolis.
No, I've not
That's
tried
quite
that,
good,
but
that's
you know, I'll need to check if they're as good as Thundercats.
I'll need to try Thundercats then. Last question: would you rather go back in time or travel to the future?
Travel to the future. Move forward. Come on.
Fair enough.
100%.
That being said, all the best in the future, Michael. Thanks very much for coming on. Links will be posted in the bio for Thundercat and Bucks Bar. Definitely need to check it out for a drink, a meal, a nice deep pan pizza, or a classic chicken burger.
Lovely. Just, salt and chili chicken burger.
Aye, definitely. Right, thanks again for coming on.
Thanks.